Hi, this is Dee, and you're listening to my podcast, Let Me Clear My Throat. On tonight's episode, we are going to go through part 6 of the Sobriety E-Book that I have been reading to you guys. And we are now on section 6. I say section, I can't even say it. So that's a lie. Episode, what is it? Episode, that's a little loud. Episode 6. And I've been trying to, it's 100 pages. I got it off of drugrehab.com. It's a sobriety ebook, Your Guide to a Better Life, written by Chris Elkins. And there was about 100 pages to this ebook. And we are on page 59 right now. Right now we're going through some questions and stuff. And if you've been following along and doing this as we go along, taking notes and answering the questions as we go, there's no right or wrong answers, and you can change them accordingly, of course, depending on your situation and different days. I mean, you can have the question down if you want to do it like once a month to see how you're evolving and how you're coping and getting along with your sobriety, kind of like checkpoints, if you will. And you can change your answers to accommodate your life at that time, if that makes sense. So anyway, we're going to get started. I'm not for sure how much we're going to get through today. I've got some pages set aside up to 71, but we'll see how we go, because if you know me, I also like to gab. So put my opinions in there, my thoughts in there, and sometimes that kind of takes over what I'm actually doing in the ebook, but that's okay, because that's what it's all about. And being a support system and supporting one another and being there for one another in all activities and triumphs in life is the humane thing to do, I believe. And they always say you should turn the other cheek, and I think that's what our problem is. We keep trying to turn the other cheek to look away from what is the problem of the world, and that's the fact that we're not paying attention to each other, and we're not taking into account the way everybody looks and feels about not only their lives, but being alive. And there are different ways of coping and self-medicating and trying to survive their own oxygen without suffocating themselves. And so necessarily realistically, let me change my word, realistically, I believe that is a huge problem with this world. And I say this world as in this planet circulating around, or however anybody wants to believe it. For all we know, we're living inside of a locker and inside of a big locker, who knows. But we just go by what we're told and where we're told we live. For all we know, we could not be on a planet Earth, and there could be, like I said, all of us in a locker, kind of like, what is it, a Men in Black, where everybody was in a locker, and you open the locker, and there was a bigger locker, or however that went. But anyway, so we're going to get started on the Sobriety ebook and see how far we can get in this. And like I said, feel free to follow along. If you need to, you stop, rewind. This is obviously recorded, because sometimes I do talk faster. Obviously, then some people can write. So anyway, we're going to get started, because I'm going to sit here and ramble on saying, So, the Sobriety ebook, Your Guide to a Better Life by Chris Elkins. I found it on drugrehab.com. If you have not went there, feel free to do so. They have a lot of great information on there and a lot of benefits of understanding different things. And this ebook, of course, is on there. So feel free to download it, copy it, skim it, save it, whatever it is you need to do. I'm more of a paper person. I guess I'm old school that way. I don't want to say old school, but I guess old school. Old without the D on the end of it. Well, I don't know. Anyway, who cares? So anyway, we got a welcome letter here in the beginning of it. I'm just going to recap of what our other episodes were about. So in our first episode, we had a welcome letter by Timothy Huckleby, and he basically talked about his experiences, welcomed people to the ebook, and words of encouragement and stuff, and kind of went over some things in that. We went over how to use the ebook, quick tips for sobriety, understanding addiction, recovery, and relapse. In part 2, there was a workbook and some questions, making the choice, setting goals, creating a support system, finding a safe environment, and evaluating your environment. In part 3, we had workbook and questions, setting boundaries, communicating boundaries, think about your relationships, creating your own boundaries, and establishing consequences. A lot of that was also like, if you're with somebody, relationship and stuff like that. Part 4 was also workbook and questions, triggers and cravings, a craving questionnaire, and avoiding triggers. And then in part 5, we went over coping skills on coping behavior questionnaire. And I actually spoke a lot in that, so that kind of took up a lot of the episode. In this one, we're going to hopefully get through, like I said, up to page, 71. So we're going to go over deciding how you cope and keep track of how you cope. And if we got time, we'll go into stress management and how you can relieve stress. And that should take us up to page, the end of 71. And then in our next episodes, we'll talk about stress management checklists, time management, evaluating your time management skills, handling relapse, making an emergency relapse prevention plan, resources for sobriety, organizations in your community, support groups, different numbers to call, and reflect on what you've accomplished and some other general information. So this is where we're at right now. Move my papers out of the way. I do have a little bit of a cold. I've been getting over for about the last weekish, I think. So I still have the sniffles a little bit. Might maybe do that a little bit in your ear, and I apologize ahead of time. So at least that's kind of the reason why I haven't been able to be on here for a minute. One of the reasons. Because I don't like to be on here like, so that just doesn't get us anywhere. So, and I think I've went through a lot of tissues because my nose has had a lot of issues. So, on that note, so on this ebook, we're going to be on page 59, deciding how you'll cope. This is a workbook question page. Actually, let me see how many pages this is. 2 pages, and which it's only 9 questions. So 2 pages, like 9 questions. So let's start off by saying the best way to cope with cravings is to practice coping skills before a craving. Write down realistic ways that you'll overcome triggers or cravings when they occur. So like I said, there's no right or wrong answers. The main thing is being honest with yourself, because you are the one that you're answering to in the end. It's your life. However, your life affects everybody in it, especially those that you're close to and you love and love you. And I have learned in my life that every action has a reaction, and every reaction has a consequence. And sometimes other people pay the consequence of other people's actions and the reaction of what happens from that action sometimes falls on the consequence to somebody else that's not even involved, because it affects everybody. And you might think, oh no, it's my life, I can do what I want. Yes, true. But it depends on how, I don't want to say heartless, but, or cold, but depends on how numb you are, I guess, to feelings. Because sometimes it's easier to try not to feel in order to think that if you don't feel, then you won't have to worry about feeling anything. But then you come to find out that all this facade that you've had on not acting like you feel anything is killing you inside, because your feelings are so overwhelming internally that you're about to implode. And what you think is safe in your mind, in your heart, in your body, in your own world per se, in fact is a ticking time bomb. Because if you were dealing with it and you were okay with it and you were in a safe place with yourself per se, you wouldn't be self-medicating. And I say self-medicating because I talked about addiction. There's so many different forms of addiction. There's good addiction and there's not so good addiction. I mean, there's dangerous addiction. There's, drugs and alcohol, but there's also other forms of addiction. There's cigarettes, there's kleptomaniac, there's bulimia, there's anorexia, there's hypochondriac, there's porn, there's gambling. There's all kinds of things. Anything that is self-sufficient and satisfying to curb the appetite, if you want to, kind of use that, in a way that is self-rewarding, of positive reinforcement, whether it's positive or not, to you, it's positive reinforcement. It's basically trying to reward you in one way or another. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing is dependent. And I guess maybe reward is not the right word for some people, but it depends on how you look at it. If reward is a word in so many different, I was thinking about this earlier. We have so many different words that sound the same, that are spelled different, that mean different, that's just ridiculous. And I'm surprised our dictionary and thesaurus can keep up with it. And honestly, they can't, because they stop putting words in there, I'm guessing, and then they just let Google take over. And sometimes Google don't even understand what the hell's going on. So, but you can reward yourself in a negative way or in a positive way. Just because somebody says it's a reward doesn't mean it's positive. Because then they're like, well, that's your reward. Or this is the reward I get, for this. So, like, maybe I'm getting scrambled here. So, like, say if somebody hypothetically says if you find a cat or whatever, you get a reward. Okay? And you're thinking, oh, cool, I'm going to get some money. I'm going to go find this cat. So, anyway, hypothetically, let's say you find this cat. And you turned it in. And you're ready for your reward. And they give you a gift card for an ice cream at McDonald's. And you're like, this is my reward? It's your reward, but you're not satisfied with it. So it's a positive reward, but you're not happy with that reward. So to you, it's like, some reward. And maybe that's not really the same concept of self-medication, reward, or positive reinforcement, but maybe it is. Because a lot of people are out there chasing some type of reward as some type of satisfaction for something that they're wanting in return of whatever it is that you're medicating for. So if you're trying to reward yourself, let's just use that word, for some type of coping mechanism that you're going through, that reward is supposed to cover and fulfill that emptiness of whatever it is you're trying to cope and fulfill. That's what that self-medication is supposed to be for, of what you started it for. Maybe. Maybe you guys just, maybe you just started just to be saying, hey, I'm going to do this. But let's hypothetically say that you were going through something and you might not even know what the hell it is. You just got this empty feeling inside of you, and you just thought that this was going to fill it up, and maybe it was going to do the trick, and you find out it wasn't, so you started doing something else. Now, before you know it, you got all these addictions going on, and you're still feeling hollow. And all those rewards now have cost you and are not so rewarding anymore. Maybe in the beginning, the first time you did something, and it was like, oh, hell yeah. You're rewarded. Self-reinforcement. Hey, keep it coming. But now, things are so bogus and dangerous out in the world now. You're chasing a high you're never going to find. That drug does not love you. If anything, it's running ahead of you to see how far you'll come to get it, just to trip you up. And it gets so far ahead, and you're chasing it so big, eventually you get too tired, and one way or another, you run out of breath. And it goes on to the next one. You didn't win that race. You're chasing something besides, you're chasing a circle. Like I talked about before, it's like a merry-go-round. You're just going around and going around and going around. And before you know it, that fun ride around the first, 4 or 5 times, that, hey, this is cool, let's go again, let's go again. Pretty soon you're going to go around so many times, it's just going to be repetitive. The excitement's going to be gone, the thrill's going to be gone, the enhancement's going to be gone, your life is going to be gone. Everything you love in your life is passing you by. And here you are, still on that little merry-go-round circle, just going around. Maybe you hear music playing in the background. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't hear anything. Because you're spending so much that people that are crying to help you, you don't even notice are there. Because all you see is chasing that drug, chasing that addiction, chasing that self-medicating reinforcement positive UBIA. And you're not going to find it. It doesn't love you. It uses you. It abuses you. It neglects you. It abandons you. You are the drug. It's not the drug. You're the drug. 'Cause it's got you. You're addicted to everything about everything except your life, your living, your being, your purpose, your own oxygen, your own self-worth, everything beautiful that you were. That drug has consumed and has swallowed you whole and spit out the bullshit behind it. And that's what you're addicted to. So what do? You're on that merry-go-round. What do you do? So much in this world is going on. It's beyond ridiculous. It's beyond dangerous. It's beyond scary. A lot of people in my life, I have found, myself included, find it difficult to feel I don't know what the word, like they fit into their own life, in their own skin. And so many people don't feel like they fit in their own skin. They feel out of place. They're a misfit. And I have always said, I have never felt like I belonged anywhere. I've always felt like an outsider and a misfit everywhere I've went. And my whole life growing up, I just felt like I was the outcast of the family, the black sheep of the family, whatever. And it wasn't until, a few years ago or whatever, that I actually have had a little bit different look at myself and my reflection. And I have discovered that a lot of my reflection has been dictated by the convictions of the world, if that makes sense. Because I have lived so long That makes me sound old. I have lived so long in this world that I have watched it evolve in ways that I don't know how we're going to evolve anymore. We have gotten so big for our britches that we are self-engulfing ourselves. And we are using using things that are valuable and morally self-respecting and making a mockery of it. And self-worth is the biggest one. Because we are so fabricated to what society and the world deems us to be. And we can't keep up with that. And that is overwhelming. It is overwhelming to be a human in this world anymore. It is overwhelming to be a person of any value whatsoever. And I'm not talking just money, value, morals, personality, whatever. Things that you value the most. Simple things that cannot be replaced. And you would think everybody, being in the COVID thing and all locked down and whatever, would have a better perspective on value of family and life and appreciation of things, non-materialistic. Instead, people have had to fabricate their life mainly of electronical devices, but during this time of lockdown, if you will, and moments in time where things were not so accessible, and people were in the realm of medication and cleaning products and hygiene items and all that stuff, even toilet paper was becoming scarce. And it was a hot commodity that people were willing to pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for something so simple. Now, during this time frame, and I know this is getting off subject, but it's not, because it comes back to around. It always comes back around. That's the circle. During the time of life shutdown, if you will, people were taking shortcuts and fabricating drugs in different ways to accommodate the accessibility of their business. So their entrepreneurship now needed to take a different form of remodeling, if you will. So what they were able to get before, over the counter, not as easy now. Because everybody was getting sick, everybody was cleaning, everybody was doing this, doing that, and nothing was readily available to keep up with their business. So they took shortcuts. They were throwing whatever they could in there just to say they had it. And it might not have anything in it that is even going to be remotely original to any of the ingredients prior or before. Except it might be white, or it might be beige, or whatever color. And you think that they're going to go, and it was working. People are buying it. And they're chasing a high that they're not getting. So, hey, that was some bad stuff, man. Oh, here, let me make it right. I'll get you something else, man. Oh, this is the shit here, man. This stuff's bomb, man. It's fire. No, man, that was some bot shit. I don't know what that was, man. I didn't like that. Whatever the case may be. And if you ever notice, they always say, man, this stuff's fire. This stuff's, bomb. This stuff's good. They always say that. This batch is better. But you're chasing something that's not there. Because you're still chasing it. If you accomplish what you were trying to get, and that filling that void, you still wouldn't be chasing. Because you're not catching up. Instead, you're getting farther and farther and farther behind in your life. And then everybody is allowed to come out into life again. You think they're going to go back to spending more money to make that product? No. Because what they were doing before is getting them business. Because if they give you some stuff that isn't so good, excuse me, you're going to keep coming back for more. Because you're hoping you're going to get one. And you're like, oh man, I'm so messed up. And in fact, you're like, well, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I feel a little funny. Well, maybe it's something that your body's saying, what the bleep are you putting in me? Maybe that's the reaction you're coming across. Maybe it's not a high you're chasing. Maybe it's, I don't know. What is Drano and antifreeze and Freon and, I don't know, what is it, starter fluid and battery acid and I don't know what all goes in drugs. And I'm just saying this off the top of my head. I mean, you're a human being. You're not an electronic device. You're not a motor. You're not a vehicle. You're not some kind of electronic. Although sometimes we feel like we are. We're not. We are human beings. We've got enough processing stuff in our body from the government's processing of food and everything else. Believe me, you are well preserved in the preserving of being preserved. But you know what the sad thing of it is you're not preserved in the healthiest way. Because nothing in this world anymore is sacred. Everything, in one way or another, is contaminated some way. There is so much crap in this world that lingers on. And people are just trying to survive living. And they're not able to have a life because they feel like they don't even belong in life. So what do? You try to cope the best way you can. You go to work, you take care of your family, you pay the bills, you try to do the necessities around the house, you try to go hang out with friends, and family, and maybe you're fighting off depression or anxiety or whatever else you got going on with you. Maybe you got health problems. Your car's broke down. You're short on money. Whatever the case may be. You lost somebody. Whatever the case may be. Life hurts. And it hurts so bad that more and more people are trying to self-medicate in one way or another to survive life. And living is sucking the life right out of them. So we're going to try to go over some ways to cope. And hopefully, we'll be able to come to something together. Because in the end of it all, we are all in this together. I don't care what country you're in, what color you are, what color your hair is. If you're short, tall, skinny, fat, I don't want to say fat respectfully. If you got one eyeball, if you got 5 eyeballs, your nationality, it don't matter. We are all in this together. Your oxygen takes up just as much room as mine. And you bleed the exact same color as me and everybody else. And we all have one exact thing in common. Death. Death. And they always, they say life is made of two dates and a dash. It's the dash that counts. Yeah, that's true. However, that's not true. Because you being born is a big deal. Because there's some people that don't even make it that far. For whatever reason. And dying? You think that don't matter? You think the ones that love you in the presence of this world and your being of who you are in general as a whole, and those that love you and know you are not going to miss you and it's not going to matter? Now, maybe on a bad day in depression, you're going to say it don't matter, and I respect that. It ain't about what's in between the dates. Because the two dates and the dash and everything in between is you. It's you. And that freaking matters. I don't care how many numbers you put on it. I don't care how many dashes you put in it. I don't care in what language you write it. I don't care if you look at it cross-eyed. It matters. Because it's you. And you wouldn't be you in between if you didn't have them dates. And the main thing, I guess, to look at is if you're listening to this podcast, bless your heart, I appreciate that. And I mean that sincerely. That last date is not happened. So in that moment of not looking at that date, per se, you still have a life to live. And if you're going to make dashes, skip up and down the road, gallop, do hopscotch, stand on one foot, and then, well, if you're like me, I hope you don't fall over, but that's a whole different ballgame. Just try to not focus on in between the dates. Focus on you as a whole. Because there wouldn't be anything if you didn't have your first date of your life. That's your birthday. And I used to take mine for granted. Well, my grandson passed away on my birthday. And I didn't celebrate my birthday because it hurt too much. And after years of going through being alive, but feeling like I was buried in my own well-being, I finally came to terms with doing life. And by the time I decided to do the holidays again, my dad died. A couple weeks after Christmas, he died. And I'm proud of myself because I didn't fall back into that hard abyss like I was before when my grandson died. Because I fell hard. Very hard. And it nearly almost cost me my life. Literally. And by the grace of God, I'm sitting here today talking to you in your ear. And I have tried my best to keep trying my best. Even if my best is not everybody's idealistic way, it's mine. Because if I can't breathe, then how am I going to survive? I'm going to hyperventilate on my own life. Because I'm going to try, or I'm going to, lose my oxygen. One way or another, I'm not breathing on my own. And maybe that might not make sense. But to me it does. Because if you know, you know. And I pray nobody wants to find out, because, there's a point in your life where you don't want to die. You just want the pain to stop. You just want the pain to stop. Self-medicating it's not the answer. Not the negative way. You can do self-medicating in a positive way. Positive reinforcement of doing good things, going places and helping people, or going on vacation, or making adventures, or taking time out for your family, or giving yourself compliments and making yourself feel good. Whatever the case may be, those are positive things. It's okay to have that, in my opinion. It's not okay to stand in the mirror and degrade yourself and belittle yourself and reinforce everything that everything has always made you feel. You need to counteract that with something good. You need to counteract that with you. And you might say, oh, I'm not good. Well, you know what? And I'm sorry you feel that way. And it's not going to happen overnight. But I am living proof that it can go in a positive direction on happening. Because I've been doing it. And it has been helping me. And that's a big reason why I started my podcast. I needed an outlet. Find an outlet, somewhere to put your feelings, not something negative and deadly. Don't help to get that second date ahead of you closer, if you can. And people are like, oh, I don't want to die. And I say that. For the first time in my life, I want to live. I might not make the best choices in life on some things. I might eat one too many donuts or something, but I'm not trying to intentionally kill myself like I have been before. And finding ways to cope was a big, huge factor for me. And now we're going to go through these questions. We're about 38 minutes into this already, and we're going to start this and get these questions going, because we need to get to where we can actually find ways to live again. It's time to, I don't even know what the word is. It's time to breathe. It's time to breathe. Question 1. What will you do when you see alcohol or another drug? This is ways on how you're deciding how to cope. What will you do when you see alcohol or another drug? How do you think you're going to cope with that? Do you have a game plan? Have you thought out how you're going to handle it? Like I said, there's no right or wrong answers, but be honest with yourself. And if you don't have an answer, that's fine. Put a star next to it and come back to it. Don't force yourself to have an answer just to have an answer to put on that line. This is between you, yourself, and your sanity. Number 2, what will you do if you see drug paraphernalia or other items that remind you of alcohol or another drug? So if you see something drug-related or alcohol-related, what will you do? How do you think it will affect you? How would you cope with that moment? Number 3, how will you respond if you pass a location where you used to buy alcohol or other drugs? How do you think you'll respond if you pass somewhere that you used to go to get alcohol or drugs? Or cigarettes, or I'm going to say alcohol and drugs, but any form of addiction, okay? Anything that is your addiction. For argument's sake, this book says drugs and alcohol. But for my participation on what I'm saying, anything that you're self-medicating that is not positive reinforcement. Number 4, how will you say no when asked to drink or do drugs? How will you say no when you ask, or if someone asks you to drink or do drugs? So let's say that you're on the sobriety thing, and you are doing really well on staying sober and doing the right things and going through the right motions, and you meet up with your friends, or you're over somewhere or wherever, and let's hypothetically say they know that you're getting sober, or even if they don't know, okay, let's say they don't know, and you're in rotation per se. How do you handle that? What do you do? How do you cope? I know, I don't know directly, but there are some circles of people, or some people, I guess, that can be very bullyish or non-understanding and so forthcoming in somebody who is trying to change their ways in positive directions, if you will. Or maybe they might be like antagonize it, or try to persuade, or one more time, or oh hey man, this stuff's supposed to be really good, or it's not gonna hurt, or just like, man, why are you being a wuss? Come on, or just whatever the case may be. How do you handle that? What do you do? How do you cope? Number 5, what will you do if you're pressured to use or drink? What would you do if you're pressured? Number 6, what will you do if you crave alcohol or other drugs when you're alone? So let's say you're alone. What do you do if you start craving something? How are you going to cope? How are you going to work through that moment? Or moments. Number 7, how will you avoid going to high-risk environments if asked? So if it's a high-risk environment and you're trying to cope, let's say hypothetically alcohol, and somebody is having a party or whatever at a bar, or they're having a New Year's Eve party at their house, and there's alcohol involved, and you're trying to sober up and work on sobriety. How do you handle that? What do you do? What coping mechanisms could you put in place to help you? Number 8, who will you call when you feel like you're at a high-risk situation? So if you're somewhere and you feel like you're at a high-risk situation, who would you call? Who would be your moral support? Who would you be able to entrust with yourself? So let's say hypothetically, you did relapse, or whatever the case may be, who would you entrust with yourself? Who would you trust with your life to be able to help you in that moment when you are not in the right frame of your own well-being? Number 9. Is that 9? Yes. Who will you call when you're experiencing a craving? So if you're having a craving, who are you going to call? Besides your local dealer. Or to see how late the liquor store is open. And this goes to like cigarettes too. I mean, cigarettes are an addiction. I know people say they're habits or whatever. We had this discussion on my other podcast. However you want to word it, addiction, habit, what is it? Addiction, habit, hobby, whatever the case may be. However you want to squint your eyes and look at it. It's an addiction. It's a self-satisfying way to curb whatever appetite you're having to cope with whatever you're coping with. Oh, it calms my nerves down. That's my point. So it's basically I'm trying to cope with that. I lost my paper. Anyway, so keep track of how you cope. It's helpful to determine which skills work for you and which ones need improvement. Keep a daily record of cravings. Record the date, notes, and the situation, your thoughts, your feelings you had, and what caused the craving. Rate the intensity of the craving and describe the coping skills you used to overcome it. So it says here is an example of a record. So they put the date. The situation in this situation was argued with spouse after a long day at work. Craving intensity was 70%. Coping skill used. Took a 15-minute walk outside with the dog. Felt better after getting fresh air. That's an example. Or it said, put the date. Went out to lunch with friends or at a place we used to drink. 90% craving. Ordered a water and asked them not to drink in front of me. Would have left if they ordered drinks. So these are examples on how to help you cope. And I will say, I have a friend who's a recovering alcoholic and a recovering addict. And he honestly can sit in a bar contently and drink a soda or water while his wife, drinks and whatever. And I applaud him for that. I really do. I am so proud of him. He has come such a huge journey of healing. And it's been a long, long road. But watching him now as he has come to life, basically, it's very beautiful to see the two of them be able to flourish and be a success story in so many ways. So, I mean, it is possible. It is very possible. Page 66, stress management. Stress is one of the main reasons people turn to alcohol or other drugs. It's the biggest word that's hard to say. It's the biggest risk factor for relapse. Developing ways to avoid and cope with stress is essential to living a healthy life. Several techniques that you've already learned can reduce stress. Removing unhealthy relationships from your life, setting boundaries, and turning to friends and family are effective techniques. Now, this is true. However, some people do not have support of family, friends, or relationships, or anything for that matter. They might be a silent addict, or they might not have a supportive family or friends, or in a relationship that, maybe both are addicts and one's trying to get sober and the other one isn't even thinking about it, or might be thinking about it, but doesn't do anything different to make it more of a reality. So instead, the drug is more of a priority to them than the person that they're supposed to love. And it's a big, huge struggle when you have a situation where you are faced with the battle of life or death of those that have become your life. And without them, you just feel like dying, because you can't imagine life without them, but yet you're watching them die in front of your eyes. And it's hard to watch, and it's hard to live through. Let's see. Change your environment. You learned about avoiding places that remind you of drinking or using. You know you should avoid places that contain triggers. It's impossible to find a perfectly stress-free environment. Welcome to the world. But some homes, workplaces, and situations are more stressful than others. If you know a place that will cause stress, avoid it during the early stages of your recovery. You may be able to return when you've developed healthy ways to deal with stress. Other places may not be worth returning to. We talked this a little bit about, they always say you should change your environments of your family and your friends or whomever, and not be in the same environment, because of triggers and going back to it and relapse and all this stuff. And while that is true, I do agree. At the same time, too, and we talked about this in my other podcast, why wouldn't you want to go back for them? Why would you want to leave them in the world of where you just saved yourself out of? And I'm not saying people are going to be strong enough to be able to handle going back in there, not going back in there, but still being a part of their life, and trying to show them a better perspective of living. And while it's not easy, because people are not strong enough a lot of times to go and handle the same environment or the same setup per se, sometimes you have to get stronger in order to be able to hold the weight of those you basically love and have to carry, and times that they can't stand up on their own 2 feet. It says take your time. There's never enough time in a day, and running out of time causes stress. You'll learn effective ways to manage time later in this ebook. But one of the easiest ways to avoid time-related stress is to be patient. I laugh because that is a big word, patient. That's a big word. Anyway, make a conscious effort to take your time when completing tasks or working towards goals. We live in a society of instant access to information, and we often expect instant gratification. Being patient requires effort and practice. When you find yourself worrying about running out of time or adding too many things to your to-do list, take a step back. Think about what you can realistically accomplish and realize that some things can wait until tomorrow. Now, I talked about this before with a friend of mine. She was so overwhelmed with some stuff and just so much coming at her. She had so much she had to take care of. And I'm like, try to make you a list of everything that you feel needs to be on your to-do list. Then go through that list on things that are necessity. Then reorganize it to what is a have to now and what is later. What do you have to do now that is time sensitive and what isn't? What is a want and what is a need? Categorize it. Narrow it down. Take the pressure off of you. Okay, you need to go to the store. You need to let's see, pay some bills. You need to make dinner. You need to organize a garage. You need to buy a refrigerator. Is your refrigerator going out? No. Are you having problems with it? No. You just want one? Well, yeah. Okay, that's on a different list. Categorize your importance. I have a habit of waking up of, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to do that. Oh, I got so much to do. I'm already overwhelmed. I need to go back to bed. And when I would come home from work, one thing I would ask my kids, give me a minute to unwind my moment. Because I have to transition over. When I come in, please, unless you are bleeding and oozing out with blood, give me a moment. Because I do not want to walk in the door and a gazillion things in my face. I can't. I'll automatically become a pain in the butt. Because my mood will already change. Give me a moment to de-escalate my traffic ride home and all the crap, my day at work, stress, everything in between. Let me rewind or unwind for a moment and take a breath before you start coming at me with a big bunch of this, that, and the other. And that was a big thing. And sometimes when you're a single parent or you're doing things on your own or you have a lot to do, a lot of responsibility, it is overwhelming. And knowing when to switch gears is very vital. However, knowing when to realize it's okay to put that list down for a moment. Because one thing we forget to write on that list is breathe, laugh, smile, have a good time, live, go do something fun, color with your kids, watch a movie with your kids, go get some ice cream with your kids and your family. Is that on your to-do list? Probably not. So don't forget that those are just as important. I would rather have a positive reinforcement of going to get some ice cream. I'll take that. That's a good positive reinforcement. I mean, to me it is. So, they always say some things, why put off today what you can do tomorrow? Yeah, depends on what that is. Spending time with your loved ones or telling somebody you love them and giving them a hug and laughing and cutting up and making memories with somebody in the moment. You might not get it tomorrow. And I'm not saying that everybody, has to put everything down, because there are things to do in order to be in life. Our life is such a chore. It is such a chore to be alive. And I mean that respectfully. To live in this world is a chore. And there's something wrong with that. You should have to schedule time in to go visit a friend, or schedule time in on your calendar to spend some time with your spouse. And I'm not saying that it's easy like that, because the way of the world, that's where we're going. And that's our problem. We are getting so far ahead of ourselves. We're not even living. We're just going through the motions of being alive. And quite honestly, some of us are not having the best journey. And that is very, very sad and tragic. Here's the next one. Relax. Relaxing is easier said than done. Isn't that the truth? But there are several relaxation techniques that force your body to release tension and help your mind unwind. Number 1, think positively. It may sound cheesy, but thinking happy thoughts is a natural way to improve your mood. Repeat positive words as phrases such as, "It's okay," or "I can do this," in your mind. Now, I always say, there's always something good and everything bad. You can have the most tragic situation, and there is something good in there. Something. And I know this directly in my life. And sometimes it's hard to see because the pain is so amplifying. But I try to stay positive, even though I have been so self-harming to myself, if you will. I'm positive for everybody else. I just have forgotten about me. But I am learning to try to remember to undo that, or at least take me along. I had this. I had someone in my, well, I say this, there was someone I know that, when I was going through a tragic time in my life, my grandson passed away. One of the things I would say, please tell me something happy. Please tell me something happy. And it wasn't because I was trying to be cheesy per se. It's because I needed to hear something good. Because everything in my life was hurting so bad that if I could just hold on to something good just for a moment, it makes all the pain and heartache and the tragedy and everything else that is hurtful and amplifying to be shadowed for a moment with some breath of fresh air and hope that there is still something good to look to, that there's still something good to hold on to in my life that's falling apart. I didn't care how simple it was. I needed something. Because that was the only thing at those moments that gave me hope. That could make me smile for a moment. That could dry my tears for a second. Because my pain was so intense that I forgot even how to laugh without it being fake. And that's a real thing. So positive thoughts. I always say now, calm mind, calm body. Positive mind, positive thoughts, positive vibes. Breathe in, breathe out, relieve all doubt. Positive reinforcement things to myself. Coping. Different things to believe in that are good, realistic, and worth believing in. Number 2, flex your muscles. Flexing and relaxing your muscles relieves tension. Start from the bottom and work your way up. Close your eyes and tighten your toes for 5 seconds. Relax for 30 seconds. Repeat the technique, working your way up your body. Excuse me. They always say exercise is good for depression. It releases stress and raises endorphins and dopamine and all that stuff. So it's supposed to be good for you. Number 3, visualize. Think of a happy place, such as relaxing on a beach or visiting friends. Think of the senses you've experienced, such as the smell of salt in the air and the feeling of the sun on your body. Or think about your friends laughing or a hug from someone close to you. Number 4, breathe deeply. Take a deep breath, hold it for a few seconds, and exhale. Repeat for a few minutes, and then try to clear your head of stressful thoughts. A variety of other techniques, such as yoga or meditation, are great ways to relieve stress, but they may require practice or instruction. I have found coping mechanisms, and I've done backups to my coping mechanisms, because sometimes, depending on the situation, some have not worked, and I've had to have a backup plan. What I have found that has worked for me the most is saying my ABCs. And I say them in my head, or I say them out loud. I say them until I can say them solidly, without any stuttering, without any crying, without any tears, without any hesitation. And sometimes I say them in my head out loud. Sometimes I'll do them out loud and in sign language at the same time, so it gives my mind multiple things of distraction. And I do it, and I do it, and I do it until I am calm and I can get through the alphabet, and I can say, won't you say them with me? I'll take a deep breath and I'll start again. And then I'll calm for a minute. I'll ask myself if I need to do it again. And depending on how I feel, will depend on if I need to do it again or not. And I have been so upset, and that's not even a strong enough word, and it has calmed me down. It took me a while, but I stayed with it, and it worked. And it might not work for everybody, but that is what has been working for me. Change your environment if you have to. There's been times I've been so up in my thoughts, and I'm like laying in bed, I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm not going to sleep. I'm just going to sit here and keep going. I got to change my environment. I got to get up. I got to go outside. I got to do something. I'll get up and I'll go outside and I'll take some air in, and I'll go back down and I'll lay back down and try to go back to sleep, or go to sleep. And I always say, you don't have a bad day. You have a bad moment. Turn your moment around to have a better day. Because sometimes you have to live in the moment, because the day is overwhelming. You have to live life sometimes, literally, one moment, one breath at a time, or you will suffocate yourself, because it is that deep sometimes. Exercise. Physical exercise can improve your mood, and research suggests that people who regularly exercise experience relief from symptoms of depression, anxiety, and stress. You don't have to run for miles or lift heavy weights to experience benefits from exercise. Walking, stretching, or performing light exercises can help relieve stress. Now, this does not include running the vacuum cleaner. Okay? I mean, more power to you. But it's called having you time. You time. Take a moment to go and get you time. You don't have to have a long time of it. You don't have to abuse it, and or whatever. Just remember who is important in your life. You. You have no life if there's no you. Eating a healthy diet. If this doesn't include donuts, I don't know if I want to read it. Just kidding. Well, eat a healthy diet. Nutrients from a healthy diet provide energy that supports concentration and emotional stability. Stress makes a less energetic, weakens our ability to concentrate, and lowers self-esteem. If you eat an unhealthy diet during times of high stress, the body doesn't have the proper nutrients to combat the negative effects of stress. While this is true, I've been pretty happy to eat a donut or to eat some ice cream. I'm just saying. But I understand the point in this. So, I understand the point in this. And I'm not trying to detour it. I was just making my comment. A well-balanced diet should include a balance of fruits, vegetables, grains, healthy proteins, and low-fat dairy products. You don't have to follow complex diet plans to eat a healthy diet, but you should avoid consuming multiple high-processed or high-sugar items each day. Be sure to control your caffeine consumption to maintain a quality sleep schedule. You know what else people can be addicted to? Coffee. Caffeine. Have you ever got a caffeine headache? Oh, I've had a caffeine headache. I used to go, change the subject, but it's really not. It kind of goes with it. I say it goes with it because I'm going to make it go with it. A friend of mine, years ago, I make it sound like I'm so old again. Years ago, back in the good old days of the 90s, in the late 80s, we used to go dancing, clubbing, and I didn't drink, and I wasn't a drinker. And I just went to dance because I love to dance. And I would drink Pepsi because I would get free Pepsi. You know, because I didn't drink. I was a designated driver, whatever. I got free Pepsi all night long. And it would give me the biggest headache from the caffeine. And so I ended up having to go to water. And of course, as much as we were dancing out there too, I was getting massively dehydrated. But I had to balance and drink water because that caffeine was just way too much for my. I just couldn't take the headache. So I didn't know, if I was the only one that got caffeine headache, or if I'm just, the weird one. Which we won't talk about that in this podcast. Anyway, limit substitute activities. Distractions can be a great way to avoid stress. Watching TV, playing video games, or diving into a book can help us relax. Spending time outside or exercising can provide physical changes that reduce stress. But you have to know your limits. We talked about this in another one of my podcasts. Sometimes people get addicted to TV or gaming. Some people are even bookworms, respectfully. And sometimes, I don't want to, obviously people say, well, what harm am I doing watching TV? You're not doing any harm. But is it your complete life? Is it consuming everything you're doing? You're doing nothing else. It's okay to play video games, but are you still living life outside of your video game? Are you forgetting that you even have a life? And now with all this virtual reality stuff and whatever, and all the graphics and stuff, do you get lost in a world that is fabricated because your world hurts too much to be in? So it's easier to survive in a world that if your game is over, you can just reboot. But then you forget that when your life is over, there's no rebooting. Spending too much time on the couch can cause health problems. The reverse is also true. Not being able to talk. Over-exercising is linked to fatigue, decreased concentration, lower heart rate, and a variety of other ailments. So sometimes you can exercise too much, which I talked about. Some people are addicted to exercising. They are addicted to working out and, and then just be so aggressive with it. and that's not good for you. Video games can be addictive and ruin relationships and careers. Most self-relief techniques are helpful in moderation, but some can be harmful when used excessively. Avoid other addictive substances. People in recovery have a tendency to replace one addiction with another. Marijuana, alcohol, tobacco are common substances that people turn to because they believe that they are less harmful than illicit drugs. But legally, it doesn't mean a substance, or legitimately, doesn't mean a substance is safe. While there is a small amount of evidence that some strains of marijuana may help with certain medical conditions, there's also evidence that shows marijuana is addictive and causes long-term health problems. Similarly, you should be wary of your alcohol consumption if you're in recovery from another type of substance use disorder. Alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana can help or can cause life problems similar to those by other illicit substances. Now, I'm going to say this, and I've said this in another podcast. Okay, so if you live in one state and it is legal to smoke marijuana, or however you want to do it, but if you cross the border of the state to another state, all of a sudden it's not. And I've talked about this before. Let's say a family has two sons. They're identical twins. One lives in one state and one lives in the other. One gets arrested for doing pot, and the other one doesn't, because it's legal. So the one goes to jail, does time. Parents put money on their books, visit them, write them, and to say this person hypothetically is in jail for 18 months. We're just going to draw a number out of the air. So this person has lost 18 months of their life due to doing pot because of the state they live in. But had they lived in the same state that their twin brother lived in, they wouldn't have got arrested. They wouldn't have lost 18 months of their life. They wouldn't be a felon. And they wouldn't have limitations on their lives now. Where they can work, where they can live, what amenities of their life they can have. But because they live where they live, it's illegal. So therefore now they have to pay time of their life for a crime that isn't a crime if they go over the state line. And let's say his brother lives right next door, but the border goes right through the yard. So let's just say it that way. You got two houses side by side, and the border of the state goes right down the middle of their house. Because the one brother lives on one side and the other brother lives on the other side, it's illegal in one state but not the other. That's jacked up. But then they're going to allow, the government says, hey, it's illegal, but if you fabricate this and make some kind of lab concoction, crap, let's just call it crap, concoction, that's what I'm trying to think of, make some bullshit, basically, and fabricate it, synthetic, and anything else, and add this, that, and the other, and whatever you can find here and there and the other, and let's package it and sell it and put it up in the gas station or down at the local 5 and dime, and let me get some taxes on it and be able to collect on it, and we're going to call it legal. But yet something that is natural, that God put on this world, mankind thinks that they are allowed to tax it and make a profit off of a plant that grows in the ground. And if you touch that plant and they don't make no money on it, they're going to make money on it because your ass is going to jail. So they're going to make money on it because you're going to pay for it. With your commissary, your this, your that, this and that, your time, everything more than what that joint was ever even worth. Unless you're the brother that lives in the other state. There's something wrong with that. There is something wrong with that. I see so much in these gas stations and these other places, and they're in vape pens now, and they're in this, they're in that, they're in edibles. I mean, whatever. And you talk about people now, they're so anti, oh my gosh, you're smoking pot. But then you see them going, I just had me an edible, oh my goodness. And they're laughing like the dot on the wall is hilarious. And it's acceptable because they bought it at the gas station. Okay, I'm glad you enjoyed your little gummy or your little edible that somebody made in a factory. But yet you want to judge me and condemn me on a natural herb that God, the one you, and all due respect, Lord, I mean, there's no disrespect to you, and God, who you go and praise and go to church for and this, that, and the other, put on this planet. You're going to judge me because I do that to calm me, to has been known and proven to help people. And I would say my uncle is one prime example of that. My uncle, my whole complete life, this man smoked pot. He actually moved to Colorado to run and grow and sell on his pot farm. And he loved it. That was his job. He decided to come back to the state where we live, and he forgot it's illegal here. So he ended up having one of his exes or whatever, and I'm going to say this respectfully, beat him up. He was a musician, and she took his guitar and busted it up and beat the hell out of him. And anyway, they both went to jail. She got time. He got a month of probation. Well, welcome to the state. You have to do drug testing. So he had to not smoke pot for a month. Now, this man has smoked pot his whole life, okay? I mean, like people who drink Pepsi. This man has smoked pot. And he didn't smoke for a whole month. And he was having pains. He wasn't feeling good. And since he wasn't smoking pot, he was able to feel this pain that he had never felt before. Come to find out, he had full-blown leukemia. He never knew it. Never knew it. My uncle died 3 years ago on Veterans Day, November 11th. He was due to get a bone marrow transplant. He was driving to Arby's on this new scooter he bought. He wanted to try this new sandwich that they had coming out. And this guy in a pickup truck pulled out from the gas station and hit him. And messed him up. Put him in the hospital. My uncle was in bad shape. Well, since he was in the hospital, he couldn't do his bone marrow transplant until he healed. He died. He died. Because he didn't heal in time. And they had a lawsuit, and he won this big lawsuit, but he was dead, and his kids collected it. He didn't get a dime of it. They didn't even know what the result was. He was gone. But his kids got it. And, yeah, so there are some good things in natural, God-giving things. Let me rephrase that. God-given things are miracles. Mankind is too busy playing God that they're stripping us of our God-given right. The government's not going to come over here and arrest me and put me in jail for 18 months because I go and pick a dandelion and fry it up in the pan and eat it, because that is a thing people do. They don't care. Eat your damn dandelion. Unless they find out it's going to be a thing they can make a profit off of. Then all of a sudden it's going to be illegal to pick your dandelions. You know how many dandelions I find in my yard? Every time I run over the lawnmower, I'm going to hell. You know what I mean? Well, heck, you know, it's just, something's wrong with that. But my point is, at the end of it all, I don't have an answer. Because I too am like you. I am living my life one breath at a time. I too am coping, trying to survive, and trying to find me again in my life. Because I have been living my life for 51 years, and I'm just now starting to meet myself. I didn't even know I existed. And I always say, life is a myth dictated by those who run it. It's like you make life up as you go along. And everybody always says, hey, it's your life. Do what you want. It's your life. You only live once. Have you ever tried living your life and just living your life? It doesn't work that way. And you're always going to piss someone off. You're not going to make everybody happy. You're not going to do it. Where in that equation do you exist in that equation? You're too busy running around making everybody happy. Chasing a life that isn't yours, but you're in it. And wondering why you feel dead. If that makes sense. It does to me, but anyway, it is a thing. And and people do struggle, and sometimes people need to be more understanding and less judgmental. And this world would be such a more amazing place to be. Don't judge what you don't know, because it takes one moment to find out the hard way. I promise you that. And if you are struggling with something, there are resources out there. There are people that care. There are plenty of moments that people in this world have endured, combined together, that are able to provide resources and hope of giving you something happy to look forward to. And giving you a reason to believe that you're worth getting off that merry-go-round. Because life doesn't need to be an amusement park to be funny. Because pretty soon they pack up and they leave. And where does that leave you if you're still spinning? And if you are going through something, my heart goes out to you wholeheartedly. 988 is the suicide prevention hotline. I say that in every podcast. And find resources in your area. It's not always so easy to reach out to somebody, especially when you're in that moment of the darkness. So try to have coping mechanisms and resources ahead of time. And have them handy. Even if you have to pin them on the wall or whatever. Have them handy for yourself. Little reminders and self-positive things, reasons to make you smile. Put a daily joke or something on the wall when you go in there and do your hair and makeup or take your shower or whatever. In my mom's bathroom, on the mirror, it's all stained up and I get out of the shower, I wrote I, heart, and a U on the mirror. So every time they're fixing my hair and makeup, it says I love you on it. Reminding myself that it's okay to love myself. If I can't love me, well, why wouldn't I want to? I matter. I matter. And if you have dedicated your time tonight listening to me, I always say from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. Because your time is the one thing in your life you cannot get back. It is valuable, priceless, and precious. And if you have dedicated listening to me with all of my heart, except the little piece reserved for my love of donuts and ice cream, I thank you. Because you have dedicated a part of your life that is valuable and that you cannot get back. And you have chosen to share it with me as I have you. And I appreciate that more than what you'll know. And if you're able to help someone or be a mentor or maybe start a support group of your own. Gather your friends that are using and you're self-medicating and trying to heal and form your own gathering. Get yourselves together. Go do something fun together and take the money you normally spend on drugs or whatever your medication would be and put it towards something worth remembering and taking a selfie, or better yet, a group photo. You don't need before and after pictures of this is me in addiction and this is me out. Why can't you just have a picture saying this is me? This is my story. This is who I am. Because you're worth being you. And on that, I'm going to close out. We're at an hour and 32. And I will post this. If you haven't listened to my other podcasts, please feel free to do so. I have them on my Podbean channel and my YouTube channel at D Let Me Clear My Throat. And we will do episode 7 in the next one. And we're actually almost done because we were at page 71 and it's only 100 pages. And the latter part of here is resources, phone numbers and stuff. So on that note, I'm going to close out because if you know me, I'm going to ramble. So I hope everybody has a safe and blessed night. And if you take anything out of this, just remember to breathe. Remember to breathe. Have a safe and blessed night. Good night.